2011 Toyota Tundra, and the owner is told that their alternator is bad. But let's dive in here, see if we can take a closer look, confirm that that alternator is bad, and then we'll see how quickly and easily we can change that out. Hey, what's up YouTube? Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. This is a 2011 Toyota Tundra with a 4.6 liter engine, and the owner has been told that their alternator is bad. Now I asked them if they were gonna have to tow it here or if they were gonna just drive it over, and they said that they're still able to drive it on over, which tells me that maybe there is another issue or something else going on. They said that the dash lit up and the speedometer was moving around quite a bit, so there might be another issue. We might just have an issue with the loose ground, or there might be something else going on with this truck. They were told that the alternator is bad by two different people, so let's take a look at that first and see if we can confirm if that alternator is bad and indeed needs to be changed. So let's go ahead and start the truck first. Now it looks like our volt gauge is right in the middle, and the battery light was on here a minute ago. Now it's, oh, look at that, it's jumping way up. I think we do have an issue with the alternator. Look at that. See, the battery light came on and it dropped back down. Let's pop the hood and take a quick reading. All right, let's see what kind of reading we're getting at idle. Oh yeah, 14 volts at idle. So you would think that the alternator is working fine. It's putting out a lot of power. Now, a lot of times when your alternator is bad, those brushes are worn out and it's not going to put out that kind of voltage. Getting 14 volts is pretty strong, but that's just at idle, and it looked like on the dash that gauge was bouncing around. So what I'm gonna do is a quick alternator test here with the scan tool. This is the Innova 5610, and there's a feature on here that we can use to test that alternator. So let's hop in the truck and do that real quick. All right, we're gonna get connected here real quick. Okay, so we've got a permanent code, a P0500. That might have something to do with their speedometer jumping around, but we're gonna take a look at that another time. So we're gonna jump into the menu here and come down, and we're gonna do a battery or alternator test. This is our vehicle, V8 4.6 liter 2011 Tundra. And let's go down and do an alternator test. So engine needs to be running at normal temperature to begin this test. Start the engine and turn on your headlights. All right, well, let's turn on the lights. All right, now they're not coming on. Okay, so the headlights are not coming on. I just called the owner about the headlights because I went to turn them on and I don't see anything coming on. And they said that they recently changed them, kind of when they were having this issue, the headlights went out and the brand new ones also burnt out quickly. So that might have something to do with our alternator. So let's take a look at this here. Let's just hit continue. Now we need to bring the engine RPM above 2000 RPM and hold it there until the countdown reaches 0. Okay, we'll just let that run. Look at that, alternator is putting out almost 17 volts. Okay, so it says our alternator status is bad. Voltage 16.59 volts. Charging voltage is over the acceptable limit. This could cause damage to the battery or other electrical components like your headlights. Inspect your charging system for faulty components or have it inspected at a certified repair facility. So I'm gonna go ahead and confirm that the alternator is bad. Yeah, take a look at that. We're pegged on the voltage. So I think that is an alternator issue. We've also got a vehicle stability kicking in right there too, and the ABS light flashing. So, you know, the whole system is over voltage right now. So let's go ahead and turn it off because I don't want to damage anything, but we're definitely over voltage. We're close to 17 volts, which is just way too much for this. So let's go ahead and pull that alternator out and we'll take it over to O'Reilly, see if we can get a replacement, put the new one in and see if that fixes our issue. All right, now the engine here is the 4.6 liter V8 iForce engine. I know these trucks also come with a 5.7. I've done the alternator on those as well. Just want to show you it's way down deep over here and it's really kind of hard to get to from the top. I think the manual says you're supposed to take out the radiator and take it out through the front. But if you look over here, now normally there's another rubber splash shield or cover right here that you would have to take off. This one's missing, but that's our alternator right down there. So what I'm going to try to do is loosen and remove this power steering pump and just slide it forward and then see if I can unbolt the alternator and then just take it out through this opening. If I can, great. If not, we'll have to take off the sway bar and take it out from below. But let's see if we can get that done the easy way and just slide it out through this opening. Hopefully that will work and we can put this back together and get it back on the road. First thing we need to do is disconnect the battery. It's a 10 millimeter and we need to make sure that that is off and out of the way and it's not going to accidentally make contact. Just tuck it way down here and that should be good. All right, now I'm going to take off this splash shield or skid plate so that we can get to that serpentine belt, loosen that tensioner and get that belt out of the way. Looks like these are all 12 millimeter. Now there's a couple of hooks here. You just kind of have to lift that up and off, and then that allows you to get this out of the way. So we'll set this over here. Now the sway bar is in the way, but I think I can still get that loose. Let's give it a try. Okay, you see right here is our tensioner for the serpentine belt. I'm just getting at this from below. It looks like it's a little bit easier, and that's a 14 millimeter on a nice long breaker bar. And I'm just gonna see if I can turn that, and then I'll slip the belt off of the alternator with my other hand. There we go. All right, if you see the tensioner, there's a little hole right here, and I'm just gonna grab this metric key. This is just a 5 millimeter Allen. I'm just gonna pop it right in there, and that is going to hold our tension while we do this. There we go. Now we can take this off and get it out of the way. Now we're gonna lift up the vehicle, put it on a jack stand. I'm gonna take off the right front tire, and then we're gonna access the rest of the alternator from that side. Make sure your parking brake is set. And I've also got the wheels chalked. All right, I'm sitting on the jack stand, but I'm also gonna leave the jack in here for extra safety. All right, now normally there's a splash shield right here. It's just held on by a couple of these little plastic snaps. So this one's missing. But what I'm gonna do is take the power steering pump out of its cradle or out of its mount. And there's just 2 bolts that we need to remove to do that. It looks like there's 3, but there's only 2. And you can get to them by going through the power steering pulley. You see the pulley right here? You can spin that freely now that we have the belt off. But the first one is right up here at the top at the 12 o'clock position if you're facing the pulley. The other one is at the 3 o'clock position. Now there's another one that's gonna feel like it's kind of at 1 o'clock. You don't have to take that off. That just holds the mount in place. This is a Coke end deep socket, and I'm just gonna position it so that it goes right through the pulley, and that lines right up on that first bolt, which is the longer one. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove that. All right, I've got it broken loose. Let me see if I can back it out by hand. All right, looks like we got it. We've got it loose. I just need to pull it all the way out. And it'll come out with a little washer. All right, there's the top bolt. I'm pulling off these 2 connectors here. It looks like they're on these pressure lines on the power steering pump. There's one. That one's on there really good. Okay, here's the other one. And there's a little mount that holds them. There we go. Also able to access that bolt through the pulley, and then that lets me get these wires off and maybe move these a little bit more out of the way. Okay, we got it. See, I just took off this one little bolt that holds these electrical connectors onto the power steering pump. I don't necessarily know that you have to take that off, but it seems like it gives a little bit more space, at least for you to see what I'm doing. It also might make it easier when we try to push this out of the way. Well, let me see if I can get the other bolt here, which is at the 3 o'clock position. I'm gonna switch up to the nut grip, which is gonna hold on to that bolt so we don't drop it on our way out. Okay, I got it. Kind of helps hold on to it a little bit better, less likely to drop it. Okay, so we've got the bolts out that hold that power steering pump in place, and it's just sitting in its cradle. We're gonna have to pry it out. So I'm just gonna get a little pry bar in here, a little Mayhew Dominator, and pry down. See if we can pry it out. Yep, no problem at all. Okay, now the power steering pump is free. What I'm trying to do is hook a bungee cord on here so that I can pull it up and as far forward out of the way. There we go. Now hopefully this power steering pump is far enough up and far enough forward so that we can get this alternator out. Okay, so now I just need to disconnect our alternator here just by squeezing these little tabs here. And I know you didn't see that, but all you have to do is squeeze in on the sides and this pulls right out. All right, and then this little plastic cover will just pop off. Just kind of pull it out from the base and you can get it off without breaking it. There it is. And we can take off this main wire right here. It's a 10 millimeter nut that holds that on. There we go. Now you see here in the front, we've got this bracket attached to the alternator. I'm going to pull that off. So let me get a ratcheting wrench for that. This is a 12 millimeter. There we go. All right, that also gives us room so that we can get to these bolts here. I think what I'm going to do first is take off these top two, and we've got lots of room to get on those. That's a 14 millimeter. I'm just going to use a long extension with an impact. I'm just going to take off this one first. It's the nut. All right, now let's go down below and see if we can get at those bottom bolts. All right, now I'm filming this from above, but I'm trying to get at these from below. I'm just gonna use this flex head ratcheting wrench here, see if I can get on there. Okay, I can see why people are struggling with those, because there's really not a lot of room without taking off that sway bar. So I totally understand now what they're saying. It's really hard to get at these, and same with these lines being in the way. But I'm still going to give it a try and see if we can get it. There we go, there's one. Okay, so you can see this one, I have it coming from the back. That's the only way I was able to get enough momentum or leverage. Now otherwise you'd have to take off the sway bar, because it's really hard to get enough leverage on this. But if you come at it from the back, even without taking these lines off, you can get it. All right, there we go. Now, because I didn't take these lines off, it's kind of in the way of this bolt, but you can see now that I have the alternator loose, it's just pivoting on that top stud. I can actually spin it around. Should be able to get that bolt out. Okay, so you can see our alternator is now loosely in here. I'm just gonna try to pull the alternator off enough to get that bolt out, and then we'll flip this around and see if that'll come out. Okay, so it's off the stud. Sounds like our bolt just dropped right out. Yep. Okay, so the bolt just dropped right out. Here's the trick, is can we get this out through this opening? I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna pull this stud and see if that gives us enough room to pop it out this way. It doesn't seem like it's wanting to cooperate right now. Okay, that looks like that will fit. Now keep in mind, this is just our plan A. If this doesn't work and I can't get the alternator out through here, our plan B is just to drop the sway bar and move some of those lines in the front and get it out that way. The reason I'm trying to do this isn't because I'm stubborn or trying to make something difficult, but it's primarily because a lot of you guys in the Rust Belt, when you take those sway bar bolts off, a lot of times the captive nuts inside the frame, they're rusted, and so they'll just spin and it becomes a much bigger job. So I'm just trying to see if it's possible to take it out through here and give some of you guys in the Rust Belt a break. So let's give this a shot here real quick, see if this stud will come out. This is an E10. Okay, it came right out. Now I also want to point out that there is a sleeve here in the block, and there's another one right down below. So that's what kind of helps line that up. It's like a dowel pin. But now that we have that stud out of the way, let's see if the alternator will come out through this opening. If not, we'll have to go to plan B, but I'm really hoping it'll fit. So let's give it a shot here. Well, it looks like it's going to work, but that power steering pump is still kind of in the way. Let me see if I can pull that up a little bit more. All right, well, still don't know if we're going to have some success here, but let's give it a try. Oh boy, really close. Okay, we got it. Well, I was just about to give up, but that's how it came out, just like that. But that's the angle right there. That worked for us. Now you can see down below, there's another dowel pin. That one stayed in, and so did that one. Now, if those do come out with the alternator, you need to pry those out somehow or tap them out and reinstall them, but ours stayed on the block, so we're good to go. So we're gonna run down to O'Reilly. We'll test this, verify for sure that it's bad, and then get a new one, pop it in, and wrap this up. Now, before I put the alternator in, I'm going to try to get this ready for the power steering pump. You can see this little sliding bushing or sliding pin. We need to push it back this direction. Now, this doesn't seem to want to move very much. I got it maybe to move a little bit, but I'm going to try to wedge this brass hammer in here and then use a pry bar and maybe see if that will give me a little bit of leverage and push that over. Okay, I think we got it. All right, sorry, I kind of knocked the camera, but I think we moved it enough to where now we should be able to get that power steering pump back in there without any trouble. Let's get our new alternator installed now. Just a quick note on this alternator, by the way, that for this truck, they make a 100 amp, 130 amp, and 150 amp alternator. So when you do buy your alternator, make sure that you get the right one. We cross-referenced the part numbers from ours and verify that we did have the 150 amp alternator, so that's what we're putting in. Now at O'Reilly, they asked me if I had the tow package or not, which this truck does have the tow package. They also asked about a rear DVD player, which we did not have. They also did spec out the 150 amp, so we would have got the right one, but I also double checked with the part number on the Denso that it was correct. So let's go ahead and slide this one in. All right, so if I remember correctly, I think this is how we had it, and we were able to get that old one out. So let's just try the same orientation here. It looks like it's gonna work. Almost there. There it is. Now we just need to flip that around so that it's facing the right direction and get those bolts all lined up. Again, make sure that you don't knock out those dowel pins or anything. All right, let's just carefully spin this around. Now, because I had a hard time getting this bolt out, I'm gonna put this one in. This is the bottom left. And now I'm gonna try to line this up on these dowel pins. I'm just gonna get this stud in there and give it a place to kind of hang on. There we go. There we go. All right, let's get the top one started here too. I'd like to get all of these started by hand before I make any of them real tight yet. And this nut right here. Now this is a tight squeeze, of course. I've got my hand underneath the frame here. Just wanted to show you real quick. I'm just reaching through there, and that's how I'm able to get my hands on here and get this started. And all I did was just pull back a little bit on those lines. It really wasn't that difficult. All right, then we need to torque the alternator nut here and the mounting bolts to 32 foot-pounds. All right, now we can put our main cable back on. Just line that up with these little grooves over here. And our new alternator came with a new nut here, so we can get that started. Now the torque spec on this says 7 foot-pounds. Just don't overdo that one. And then we can plug this guy back in. Just push it until you hear it click. Now remember, we've got this little bolt here that goes right down here in front. All right. Now I didn't forget this little plastic cover. We just need to snap that back on. Now we can just pull these bungee cords out of the way. We should be able to just carefully position this back in its own cradle. I think that's going to work. Yeah, we got it. Okay, I think I've got it in now. Let's just see if I can get this bolt started. Oh boy, it's not perfectly lined up yet. There we go. I kind of used the pulley to spin it and that knocked it the rest of the way in place. Okay, we definitely got it started. That's great news. I'm just using a smaller ratchet. It's going a lot quicker now. Okay, now I don't want to make that snug yet because I want to put in our other bolt here too. I'm using a nut grip socket on this one, hoping that I can get that lined up without dropping it. Just kind of pivoting this around till we find the right spot. Okay, there it is. All right, that's nice and snug. Now I'm going to try to get in here with a torque wrench and torque these to 21 foot-pounds. Now we just need to line up this harness right here. Same thing, goes through the pulley and through that little wiring harness mount. Get that started. This one's a lot easier to get to. Now I'm also going to reconnect these as I'm tightening this because this one seemed like it was kind of pinched and kind of in the way of that harness or that bracket. So let's push this one on until it clicks. There we go. Same with this one here. Just slide that right on. Okay, that looks good. Now normally we would put back our splash shield, but since we didn't have one, we're not going to put that back. Now we do need to put our serpentine belt back on, so that's what I'm going to go do. We're going to go do that from below, and I'll put a little diagram up on the screen here for you if you need that, but it's pretty straightforward. And once we get that routed, then I can release that tensioner, pull that hex key out, and then reconnect our battery, and we should be good to go. Okay, there we go. And that's it, that's on. You just want to double check and make sure that everything is on and everything's going around the correct pulley, but I think we're good right there. So let's go ahead and release the tension. Okay, and then I'm just going to pull out that little hex socket here that was holding the tension for us. And then we'll just let that go and pull that off. You can see our belt is now on. Now my 14mm socket came off on the tensioner, so we just had to grab that. All right, I'm going to reconnect the battery. All right, now we can put the wheel back on. All right, now we can put our skid plate back on. Just remember you've got these hooks that line up here, make it a little bit easier. Now you do want to make sure your battery is fully charged before you start it. Looks like we're pretty good, about 12.5 volts. All right, well, let's go start it up and then we'll see what kind of voltage we're getting. And then we'll plug in the Innova 5610 and see how it does. Well, we do have that voltage gauge on the dash, and right now it's right around the middle, but let's see what kind of volts we're putting out with the voltmeter. Let's see what we're at. Okay, so we're at 14.16. Now that's pretty normal, and that's about what we would want. Now let's do that same test with the Innova 5610 scan tool and see what result we get, or see if we get a different result. Plugging on in down here. We still have the P0500 permanent for that vehicle speed sensor, and we do have a lot of monitors that are incomplete because of disconnecting the battery, but we don't have a check engine light on the dash right now, and we don't have the battery light flashing, which is great. Well, let's go into menu and we're gonna scroll down to that same alternator test. All right, I'm gonna turn on the lights. Okay, it says the lights are on. Now we still don't have headlights in here right now because they blew, but you can see that the headlight icon is on the dash. Now we're gonna hit continue. Let's get our RPMs up above 2,000. Just letting it do its countdown. Okay, turn the headlights off and return to idle. Okay, headlights are off. Alternator status good. So we passed. It's good to go. Now, I don't know about that P0500 code. What I'm gonna do is give this back to the owner now that we don't have the battery issue. I'll probably ask them if they want me to get some headlights and throw those in. But outside of that, everything is running great. We don't have the battery light on the dash, and looks like we are good to go. Well, as you can see, you can change the alternator on this truck by taking it out through the side, through that opening. Now, the reason I did it through the side versus taking it out through the front, you know, keep in mind, most of the videos here on YouTube show taking it out through the front. The reason that I did it that way are two reasons. Number one, it's the way that I think I did it the first time that I did an alternator on one of these trucks, but it's also a way to avoid taking off that sway bar. Now, for me, I'm not in a rusty area, and that would have come down no problem. Really not a big deal. There's just a few more lines, those transmission cooler lines, and of course the oil pressure sensor, and maybe that hose was in the way. You'd kind of have to just push it or squeeze it out of the way, and that would work. But I know a lot of you in the Rust Belt are going to run into a problem if you try to take off that sway bar. A lot of times that captive nut that's in the frame will break loose due to rust, and you won't be able to get that sway bar down. And so if you don't want to mess with the sway bar and don't want to mess with those cooling lines or anything like that, you can do it the way that I did. Just take note to how I had the alternator positioned. Once I had that figured out, it went pretty quick. I did fumble with that for quite a while, and I almost gave up and pulled it out the front, which was my plan B, of course, but I was luckily able to get it out. I think the key is not only the correct orientation, but also having that power steering pump tied up out of the way as much as possible, and that allowed me to squeeze it out through the side. Now, the last alternator that I did on a second-gen Tundra was the 5.7 liter engine, and I was still able to get it out through the side. So I do know that you can do it with a 4.6 or the 5.7 liter engine. But that's pretty much it. I hope you guys liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't mind. That does help me out. And of course, I'll get a link in the description where you can pick up some of the same parts and tools used in the video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.